Zainab had waited years for the moment her husband, Kunal, would surprise her with a car. As a loyal wife of 7 years and the mother of their 2 beautiful children, she had sacrificed her dreams, stayed faithful, and stood beside him through hardship. Now that Kunal's construction business had blown up, everyone in the estate knew them as the wealthy Ojedikans. One bright Saturday morning, Kunal came into the bedroom, smiling. "Come outside, Zainab," he said, holding out the keys with a proud grin. "I got you something." Zainab rushed out, barefoot, still in her wrapper, heart pounding with excitement. Parked in front of their house was a dusty, grey Toyota Corolla. Scratches lined the side. The seats were worn. It was old, clearly used. But Kunal's arms were wide open. "It's yours," he beamed. Zainab forced a smile. "Thank you, Kunal. Thank you." But something inside her broke that day. It was supposed to be an ordinary afternoon at Mimi's Beauty Lounge, the most talked about salon in town. Zainab had finally carved out a little time for herself, a rare treat since becoming both wife and mother. As the hairdresser parted her natural hair for retouching, she leaned back in the chair, trying to relax. But peace was not hers to enjoy. Just behind her, 2 women were gossiping over pedicures and chilled Chapman drinks. Their voices were low, but Zainab heard them all too clearly. "Did you see the Range Rover that stopped by at the boutique yesterday?" "Ow! That one with a red body and cream leather interior." "Yes, N.A. Brand new. The driver is one fine babo. I hear Kunal Ojedikan bought it for her. His secretary that turned side chick." Zainab's heart stopped. She sat up slowly, unsure if she heard correctly. "Wait, Kunal Ojedikan," the other woman giggled. "Zainab's husband." "That's what I heard. And the girl, Linda? She's now his shadow. People say they even travel together. Dubai last month." The words cut through Zainab like glass. Her scalp burned, not from the relaxer, but from rage. She gripped the chair's arms, blinked back the tears, and asked the stylist to wash her hair immediately. On her way out of the salon, as if the heavens had arranged a cruel confirmation, Zainab spotted a glossy red Range Rover parked across the road. Her breath caught. The woman leaning against it wore oversized sunglasses and heels that sparkled in the sun. Her hair, long, silky, and clearly not cheap, framed a perfectly made-up face. It was Linda. Zainab stood still, staring across the street, watching as Linda laughed into her phone and posed slightly, the way women do when they know they're being admired. Then, as if sensing a presence, Linda glanced up. Their eyes met. For a split second, time froze. Linda didn't flinch. She smiled, waved smugly, then stepped into the Range Rover and drove off with grace, leaving behind dust, shame, and a storm brewing in Zainab's soul. Zainab didn't cry on the way home. She didn't speak. But something inside her cracked that day. A woman who once believed in loyalty and sacrifice, now stared hard at reality. The man she loved, her husband, had not only betrayed her but flaunted it in public. She was the wife, yet treated like the side note. As her used Corolla coughed and jerked over a pothole, Zainab gripped the steering tighter. "So this is what I'm worth to him," she whispered to herself. The answer came not in words, but in silence, the kind that screams deep inside a breaking heart. The atmosphere in the house that evening was stiff, like the calm before a violent storm. Zainab had barely spoken since returning from the salon. She had prepared dinner for the kids, bathed them, and tucked them into bed with her usual tender care. But beneath that routine was a woman wrestling with betrayal, heartbreak, and the deafening silence of a crumbling marriage. Kunal walked in at 9:45 p.m. He smelled of expensive cologne and had a faint trace of lipstick on his shirt collar. He didn't notice the intensity in Zainab's eyes. Or maybe he did, and simply didn't care. He dropped his car keys on the console and loosened his tie like a man returning to peace. But Zainab was no longer his peace. "Kunal," she called, her voice calm, deliberate. He looked up. "Yes. Who is Linda to you?" The question landed like a stone in water. A long pause followed. Then came the scoff. "Zainab, what kind of question is that? You're starting again. Did you buy her a Range Rover? Kunal frowned and looked away. Zainab, don't do this. Don't turn my evening into a drama. Zainab stepped closer. Answer me. I said, did you buy Linda, your former secretary, a brand new SUV while you handed me a dusty, second-hand Corolla like I'm some leftover woman? Zainab, watch your mouth. Kunal snapped. No. You watch your actions, she flared. Her voice shook, but her eyes were steel. I gave up my career for you. I stood beside you when your business was crawling. I cooked, cleaned, prayed, fasted, even borrowed money to help you. And you dare spit on me with this insult? Kunal's jaw tightened. Why are you comparing yourself to Linda? What is it with women and competition? She makes me feel alive. Zainab. She doesn't argue. She doesn't question everything. She lets me breathe. Zainab took a deep breath, fighting the tears threatening to spill. She makes you feel alive. But what about me, Kunal? Do you know how it feels to be invisible in your own marriage? To smile in public while your heart is bleeding? You gave her everything I begged you for. Time, affection, respect. And now, a car worth millions, while I'm out there with a vehicle that breaks down every 2 days. He looked away, his silence confirming her worst fears. I see, she whispered, her voice barely audible. So this is what I mean to you. After all these years, I'm just second-hand. Kunal stood up. I don't have time for this emotional blackmail. You have a car. Be grateful. Then he stormed into the bedroom and slammed the door. Zainab stood there, alone in the living room, staring at nothing. The room echoed with emptiness, the same emptiness that had crept into her heart. She sank slowly to the floor, pressed her hand over her mouth, and let the tears fall. But they weren't tears of defeat. They were the final tears of a woman who had finally reached her breaking point and was now ready to rise. The days that followed were dark and silent. Zainab moved through the house like a ghost, present, but distant. The warmth she once carried in her voice when calling the children had faded into quiet instructions. The laughter that used to fill the living room was gone. In its place was the cold hum of loneliness and a marriage unraveling thread by thread. Kunal barely stayed home. Most nights, he left in the name of business meetings and returned past midnight, reeking of perfume and liquor. Some nights, he didn't return at all. Zainab stopped asking questions. The neighbors whispered. Some pitied her. Some mocked her behind closed curtains. How can the wife of such a rich man be walking to the market? Did you see her used car? Even Kimi's husband, a mechanic, bought her a newer one. But the final straw came on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Zainab had just delivered food to a client and was driving home when the old Corolla began to rattle. Then, without warning, it jerked violently and stopped in the middle of a busy road. The sky was already gray with thunderclouds, and within minutes, rain came pouring like judgment from heaven. Cars honked. Drivers shouted at her to move. She stepped out, drenched in seconds, trying to open the bonnet with trembling hands. Her jewel loosened. Her makeup washed away. Her dignity drowned in the rain. A bike man pulled over to help, but the damage was bad. The car needed towing. So there she stood, under the pouring rain, the legal wife of a man worth millions, soaked to her bones, begging strangers to help push a broken-down car. When she got home that evening, her fingers were wrinkled from the rain. Her clothes were clinging to her skin. Her bones were cold, but her heart was colder. Kunal was seated in the living room, sipping red wine and watching football. He looked at her once, then returned his gaze to the screen without a word. No, how was your day? No, why are you drenched? Not even a glance of concern. Zainab walked straight to the bathroom. As the hot water ran down her back, she held the sink and stared into the mirror. What stared back wasn't the Zainab she once knew. The Zainab in the mirror looked tired, forgotten, broken. But somewhere, beneath the layers of pain and betrayal, a fire began to burn. That night, after putting the kids to bed, Zainab sat at her small desk and opened her catering notebook. She began planning, pricing, strategizing. No more waiting for love that had gone cold. No more begging to be seen. No more tears for a man who didn't care if she was drowning. That rainy day didn't just break her car. It broke the last thread of the old Zainab. And in her place, a new woman was beginning to rise. One who would never again accept second-hand love. They say rock bottom teaches you lessons that the mountaintop never will. For Zainab, that rainy Thursday didn't just drench her clothes. It washed away every illusion she once held about her marriage, her worth, and her future. From that night forward, she stopped waiting for Kunal to come home. She stopped cooking extra portions for a man who rarely ate at home. She stopped asking questions, and most importantly, she stopped shrinking herself. Instead, she turned all her pain into fuel. Zainab poured her energy into her small catering business, Z's Kitchen, which until now had only existed in the background of her life. She started taking bold steps, branding her food packs, opening a social media page, investing in photography for her dishes, and reaching out to event planners and influencers. Every morning, while Kunal snored on the couch after a night out, Zainab would rise at 5 a.m., kneel to pray, and then get to work. She handled orders, deliveries, staff recruitment, all while raising her children without emotional support. Her determination began to attract attention. One weekend, she catered a small wedding for a family friend. Her food was the talk of the day. One guest, impressed by the presentation and taste, happened to be a wedding planner with access to elite clients. Within weeks, Zainab was booked for back-to-back events, birthdays, corporate luncheons, high-end weddings. Her business exploded. She moved from cooking in her kitchen to renting a small space. Then she hired more hands. She created uniforms for her staff, bought new catering equipment. Her brand grew fast, and so did her confidence. She no longer waited for Kunal's Range Rover to turn into the compound at midnight. She no longer asked him about his late nights. She was too busy building her empire to chase a man who had forgotten how to love her. One day, after a successful launch of her home taste luxury platter that went viral on social media, Zainab did something bold. She walked into a Toyota dealership, alone, and bought herself a brand new Toyota Prado SUV. Cash. No financing. No co-signing. No husband's approval. She drove it home with pride, the same home where Kunal once dropped a used, beat-up Corolla in front of her like a charity donation. She parked the shiny white Prado in the driveway, stepped out in her elegant black gown and sunglasses, and walked into her house like the queen she had always been, just now fully awake. The kids ran out, screaming in joy. "Mummy, is that your new car?" She smiled. "Yes, my darlings. Your mummy worked hard, and God blessed her." That evening, Kunal came home early for the first time in weeks. He stood outside staring at the new SUV, confused. Then he walked in and found Zainab in the living room, laughing with a client on the phone while sipping freshly pressed juice. He watched her, the glow in her skin, the confidence in her voice, the grace in her posture. This wasn't the broken Zainab he had left behind. No. This was a woman who had built herself back from the ashes, and was now untouchable. For the first time in years, Kunal felt something unexpected. Fear. Life has a way of humbling those who rise on the wings of deceit. Just when Kunal thought he had it all, money, status, and a beautiful mistress by his side, the universe began to collect its debt. Linda, once his obedient side piece, had transformed overnight. The soft-spoken girl he used to command like a servant had turned into a demanding queen. She wanted more money, more clothes, more attention. She wasn't content with being the shadow anymore. Kunal had moved her into a high-rise apartment in Lekki, furnished it with luxury items, and hired a maid for her. She stopped working at his office and became a full-time baby girl. Whenever he questioned her spending, she reminded him, "I sacrificed my job and my dignity for you. I deserve to be treated like a queen." And then came the pregnancy. Linda made a public announcement on Instagram, showing off her baby bump and tagging Kunal. "Blessed to be carrying my love's first son," the caption read. It went viral. Zainab didn't react. She simply blocked the account and continued cooking for her new high-profile client, the deputy governor's wife. Meanwhile, Cunnel was sinking. He tried to manage Linda, the pregnancy, and his company all at once, but things started spiraling fast. Clients pulled out after rumors spread about him diverting company funds for personal expenses. One major investor pulled his support after photos of Cunnel partying with Linda in Dubai surfaced online, during a time he had claimed to be at a business retreat. Then the hammer fell. One morning, EFCC agents stormed Cunnel's office. Linda had used his signature to process fake contracts and redirected money into offshore accounts. All those documents he signed without reading while she massaged his ego? Fraudulent. Linda vanished. Just days after giving birth, she disappeared, baby and all, along with 2 of Cunnel's most trusted employees. The flat in Lekki was abandoned. The maid claimed Linda flew to South Africa using a different name. Cunnel was arrested and detained for questioning. His family refused to help. His older sister, who once adored him, said, "You shamed your wife and made a fool of your family. Deal with it." His friends? Gone. Business partners? Silent. He was granted bail, but with a strict condition: he had to pay a huge sum or face prosecution. Broke. Alone. And disgraced. Cunnel found himself standing outside the one place he thought he'd never return to with his head bowed: Zainab's gate. The sun was beginning to set as Cunnel stood at the tall black gate, worn out and humiliated. His once spotless white shirt was wrinkled. His shoes, once polished to shine, were now dusty. His face carried the weight of sleepless nights, regret, and shame. He hesitated for a moment, staring at the house he once ruled like a king. The home where a faithful woman had once waited for him with warm food and open arms. Now, the compound was quiet, peaceful, and guarded. Even the flowers by the driveway looked brighter. Then he saw it, the brand new Toyota Prado SUV parked majestically in the corner. His heart sank. Zainab had risen. Without him, the gate opened slowly. It wasn't the gateman. It was her. Zainab stepped out, glowing in a soft blue boo-boo gown that flowed with elegance. Her skin glistened in the evening sun, her eyes lined with confidence. She looked regal, not angry, not bitter, just transformed. Their eyes met. For a moment, there was silence. Then Cunnel dropped to his knees, his voice shaking. "Zainab, please, forgive me. I was stupid. I was blind. I didn't realize your worth until I lost everything. You were right. Linda was never you. She betrayed me. Everyone left me. You're the only one who truly cared, and I destroyed that." Tears pooled in his eyes. His hands trembled. Zainab looked at him quietly, her expression unreadable. "You didn't just destroy our marriage, Cunnel," she said calmly. "You destroyed my trust, my confidence, my peace. You mocked my sacrifices. You shamed me publicly. You gave another woman what I deserved, and you did it without remorse." Cunnel wiped his tears and reached for her hand. "Zainab, please. I've learned my lesson. Give me another chance. Let me make things right." She slowly stepped back. "I gave you 7 years, Cunnel. 7 years of love, loyalty, and forgiveness. You broke every vow and called me bitter when I cried for your attention. I begged you with dignity. You chose to humiliate me." Her voice grew steadier, sharper. "Now you want to come back, not because you love me, but because life dealt you the same pain you served me. No, Cunnel. I'm not your safe space anymore." He broke down in tears, still on his knees. But Zainab didn't cry. She had cried enough. She looked down at him with grace, not hatred, and spoke the final words he would never forget. "I forgave you long ago, not for your sake, but for mine. But forgiveness is not a welcome mat. Go find your healing, but not in my home." She turned around slowly, walked back through the gate, and closed it gently, not with anger, but with peace. From the other side, Cunnel heard the sound of children laughing, and the quiet hum of a strong woman's victory. He was left with silence. And regret. Moral lesson. Never take for granted the one who stood by you when you were nothing, because when they finally walk away, no wealth, regret, or apology will be enough to buy back their peace.